You received a call from
It's me, babe.
an inmate at the Washington State Penitentiary. This call may be recorded and monitored. If you wish to block any future calls of this nature, press 7 now. To accept this call, press 5 now. To decline this call, hang up.
I still can't get over that introduction.
I made that years ago, and my wife was the only one I called.
It's still funny.
Whatever. Did you talk to the DA?
Yes, I actually went down to the office and we had a nice little discussion, and I learned a few things from him too. Your cousin should write a letter and just explain everything that he's done. Any classes that he's taken, any progress that he's made, any relationships that he has on the outside that can help him to get back into society and stay out of trouble. I mean, the main thing in this situation is that the person gets out and doesn't go back, because we don't want a DA to recommend early release and then this person turn around and get arrested for, let's say, a violent crime. So he has a good chance, but he's really going to have to sell himself on this.
Killer job. Can you help him?
No. What do you think I am, a miracle worker?
What?
Of course I can help him. That's what I do. Now remember, it's all up to him, and I'll guide him in the best way I possibly can, but he's got to take control of this situation, and he's got to take control of his life, because if he doesn't, then he may end up as your cellmate.
Yeah, I hear you, brother. Thanks, I appreciate you. I gotta go get my meds. KMP.
You bet. I'll do the best I can.
Goodbye.
Bye.
The caller has hung up.
Welcome to AQS Inmate Call, and I'm your host, Joel Wilborn. And this is the second part of my Paula Gardner series. And just want to start out by giving a recap of what we talked about in the first episode. This is about Paula Gardner. She was diagnosed with cervical cancer, stage 4, and now it's terminal. And she won a settlement with the Washington Department of Corrections for $9.9 million, which was the largest giving out in that similar situation. And I just kind of look back at it and think, this woman is worth $9.9 million to the Department of Corrections. I don't like the idea that people would make mistakes like that, serious mistakes, and just throw out some money and then go on with their business. And that's why I'm a prison advocate. And that's why I want to try to make sure that the people that are incarcerated, their voice is heard, and they won't have to go through this stuff anymore. But if they follow policy and procedure and they follow the law, then we can catch cancer in early stages and treat it properly. We could give proper diagnosis to people with chronic illnesses or terminal illnesses, or even those who come in with an illness, and they can be put in the proper facility and they can receive proper care. Or the court system can just simply use an alternative form of sentencing and not lock the person up. I think a big thing that we take away from this is that the facilities are not prepared to take care of them. Now, in this episode, we'll do a little bit of history on Paula and see how it led up to this verdict that we got in her current situation. So I'll read a note from Paula. Let's see here. Okay, she said, touched by my uncle at 6, molested at 9 by a woman I babysat for. Met my dad at 11 because he found out he was dying. My mom worked, so I was alone a lot of the time. 12, started skipping school, drinking at 14, got my mom kicked out of her apartment, started having sex, was introduced to crank at 15, met a 32-year-old sex offender. He was my boyfriend, had a kid at 17, another at 19, was selling drugs and cashing checks, running the streets. There's a lot more in between all this. My sister was murdered when I was pregnant with my first son. My cousin's boyfriend hung himself around the same time. Started getting in trouble at 21, selling dope to pay bills, single mom and trying to make it, had fucked up boyfriends. I've turned myself into treatment once my son was sexually molested by a 13-year-old boy when he went to stay the night at his house. I relapsed in and out of jail, prison. My mom got real sick, and I'm using and hustling, taking care of my mom, changing her diapers and feeding her, bathe her, trying to make mortgage payments. I didn't know anything about paying bills until I had to. On top of this, remember, I'm a drug addict. Now, that's not an excuse to get into a life of crime, but it gives you an idea of what she was going through. And then we move on to the next stage where she was picked up by the police after having committed a crime. And then she's convicted and she's sent to Washington Correction Center for Women. And now, again, I'll go back and we'll talk about what she went through when she got there. Now she says, "Hello, my name is Paula Gardner, and I am currently incarcerated at Washington Correction Center for Women. I am a 40-year-old woman who has been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer April 2021. When I was 15 years old, I got HPV, and from then on, I have been keeping up with my yearly checkups and pap smears. I have had 2 children since then. I have had a history of abnormal pap smears, so I have been cautious to make sure my health is always taken care of, as records show. I came to prison in 2019 and had a pap smear with an outcome of elevated levels of HPV and was supposed to be checked in a year. The prison failed to do so until April 2021. If I had known this, I would have fought to get a pap smear sooner. At the time, I thought I was clear, and per protocol, I would have had to check another 3 years. As a result, it turns out I had to undergo chemotherapy and surgery was not an option. I am in remission and now I have a chance to have surgery, which I am waiting to have now. DOC needs a better system. I believe all this could have been prevented if the right medical processes were made. And now I am left with mental health problems and a chance of cancer returning to my lymph nodes. I am only 40 years old, and I may not make it to live the rest of my life. I have 2 years left until I am eligible for early release, but who is to say I may not make it to see my 2 boys? As I get ready for the world again, I sit and think about what I can do to change people's lives. I will advocate for women and men in prison who has cancer and is limited to resources. Not only do we grieve our lives, we were also recovering from drugs and alcohol abuse and or mental and physical abuse as well. I know we commit crimes, reasons we are here, but we are humans just like the next person. Being diagnosed with stage 4 cancer was life-changing, and it felt like I was not going to make it out of prison. I was not sentenced to life in prison, but I am sentenced to life with cancer. Since this self-awareness, I now know I want a better life to live as long and healthy as I can. People do not understand the impact on a person knowing you could die. When you are running the streets, our mind does not respond, "Oh, I could die," or "up," until it is too late. We do not think of consequences. We think of our own selfish ways, living with the possibility of the cancer coming back and knowing that it can easily take my life away really affects me deep down inside. WCCW is not set up for cancer, nor do they provide mental health to help ensure that we are taken care of. Their focus is on the other mental health problems, which I support. But what about us? Cancer is a problem in many ways. My passion is to advocate for the people who need support, who lack resources or the ability to reach out. I also want to advocate for the young youth as well about getting vaccines for STD and HPV, along with safe sex. It is important to get situated with youth while they are still young, and we can do prevention control. I believe from my experience that this would also help the reduction of cancer patients as time goes on. I am in the process of filing for clemency and asking the governor, Jay Inslee, to give me early release. I do not know how much time I have left, and I want to have the liberty to walk and to be free out of this man-made hell. My intention in reaching out to the cancer community is to be the voice of the voiceless and seek support from my community for my hearing. I know you understand what I am facing, and every day I strive, but I need your help. I feel that my community can benefit from me simply by sharing my life story, and I hope that my community can help me as well and lead me the way to freedom. I am interested in anyone who would be willing to advocate for me. I look forward to hearing from my survivor community. Now, that's a letter she wrote to ask for some sympathy, for some support, for some encouragement. You know, she was just speaking from her heart, just speaking out. And we did attempt to get her an early release. And so she asked me to proofread and print out a letter that she could send to the Lincoln County prosecuting attorney. And she sent it to me through email. I made my revisions. I printed it out and sent it to her. And the mailroom at WCCW rejected it, claiming that it was a third-party correspondence. Now, this didn't sit right with me because there's a lot of third-party rejections, not just with me, but from other people too. I've had many people complain about it. And it just seemed kind of odd that they would use a letter that was written by Paula Gardner as a third party. She's one of the two parties, me and her. It was just one that she wanted to read over, sign, and send out to Nina Fisk, who was the Lincoln County prosecuting attorney, who would be, in that particular case, the next recipient or the second party. So there would be no third party involved in this. I called several times, well, not really called, but I sent emails and letters and correspondence just trying to figure out what the definition of third party was, and nobody wanted to answer me. So finally, I called the mailroom at WCCW and I asked, what is a third party letter? And her answer was spot on. It is definitely not this letter that I sent to her. wanted to get this done quickly. So it was just a roadblock. We went around it by her giving me the name of her attorney so that I could contact him and ask for an early release or clemency or something like that. Now, her attorney was very helpful for me. He told me that the district attorney office at Lincoln County was not a big fan of Paula's, and that the trial brought out a lot of mistrust and animosity. Yet I decided, well, I'd give it a chance, but I did have that knowledge from her attorney. And I called Nina Fisk, the Lincoln County prosecuting attorney, and she, well, a receptionist was there, answered, and when Paula Gardner's name was mentioned, I could hear Nina Fisk in the background, like she didn't want to talk. Now, I had sent her a letter myself on speaking on behalf of Paula Gardner, but it was just there was no response to it, and usually there aren't when I send out letters of support and recommendations and stuff. So that didn't surprise me, but the call that she wouldn't take it. And so we decided to contact the district attorney, Adam Walser. And it was very unusual that he didn't want to work with her. Now, it doesn't matter what your personal feelings are. You have to go by the law. You have to follow proper procedure. That's what got her in this mess in the first place. And this district attorney is supposed to investigate and bring to the court the crimes and, protect the community. The best way to say it is that the district attorney is responsible for prosecuting criminal cases on behalf of the government within their jurisdiction. They work to ensure justice is served by presenting evidence, arguing cases, and seeking appropriate punishments for those convicted of crimes. Now, they're also responsible for proper sentencing. And if a person's health condition is severe or terminal and continuing incarceration would be deemed inhumane, then they'd want to release this person. And the key was to prove that this was inhumane punishment. So I suggested to Paula that she get her physician or somebody on the medical staff that could convince this district attorney that staying in WCCW was inhumane. And Paula was able to build up quite a supportive relationship within that prison. Once the people found out she was in trouble with this cancer and that it wasn't getting any better, they would reveal things to her and call her to aside and tell her things that they saw and offer their support. A lot of them offered their support. It was fantastic. It really blew my mind. So the medical staff was able to convince this man that she was dying. And since his requirement was, I will only release her if she is on her deathbed, if she is actually dying, we were able to convince him. I'm not sure what crime he would consider good for clemency. Maybe somebody who committed murder could get clemency. Somebody who committed rape. Or somebody who burned down a building. Paula wasn't a violent criminal. She was an addict. She committed crimes to support her habit. And although her crimes aren't victimless, she wasn't a huge threat to society like other people would be. And we could understand if she was a violent person. You wouldn't want to let her out and just keep treating her within the prison. But we had her locked in a prison that was ill prepared to care for and didn't do proper work for her anyway. So it's kind of bad that this guy would just throw all that stuff out the window. But my recommendation to you is, if you're going to prison, if you know somebody who's going to prison, you know somebody who's in prison, or if you're able to communicate to people and give them some advice who are locked up. If you have a medical condition, make sure you have a medical staff member that you could trust. I'm working with some cases now, and that's the number one thing I recommend. Get somebody on a medical team. You may have a family member who's in the medical field, or you might have your own doctor who's willing to answer questions and work with you and give you advice and referrals. But an outside source, because anybody that works for the DOC, they're going to support the DOC. It's very rare, but it does happen. Like with Paula, they'll step out of that role and help her. If you can get those kind of connections, you'll have a better chance of winning these medical cases. And we need to bring more of them out there. It's really not that hard. You can go to websites and you can get the names of attorneys who would be willing to work on contingency if possible. But you definitely need a trusted source to vouch for you. Paula had that luxury. And I look at it like this. Adam Walser and Nina Fisk had an opportunity to keep Paula out of harm's way. As she said herself, she was diagnosed with HPV at 15, and when she got to the prison, they noticed that she was elevated levels. This was a clear-cut sign that she was heading toward the cancer demon. When the judge, jury, district attorney, prosecuting attorney, defense attorney, anybody knows that WCCW is a terrible place to send people who have an ailment, we should do everything we can to stay away from that, to keep them out. And so what I would like is to get this type of information out there. If somebody is suing a prison facility for inadequate care, this needs to be news, and the details need to be shared. And a lot of them are, the person was showing signs, had tested positive, there was something that when they went in. And we're still in the justice system locking people up like that. I don't know why. It's not cheaper to lock up a person who has cancer or who has debilitating illness. Maybe somebody who has dementia that's going in there. And we can do better. We have facilities set up for people who have severe medical issues. But cancer, that's something different. And a person who's suffering from terminal cancer most likely isn't going to go out and rob a bank. And what harm would it do to have helped this person, no matter what they're feeling? You got to put those stuff aside. You got to look at the law. Inhumane is not the way to play this. So, that being said, remember, there are some good district attorneys out there. They do a fantastic job. But once they get stuck on that, I'm locking you up and you're never getting out, that could be very dangerous. And in some cases, it could be fatal. And the Lincoln County District Attorney's Office needs to be held accountable for the people that they send to prison. If it can be proven that they looked at all the things, all the health and the history of the prison, the medical resources, and they felt that this was the proper place to send her, that's one thing. But I don't think they looked into that. I think they were just so angry of the way she was acting and in court. She was scared, she was nervous, she was lashing out. Of course, that's no excuse, but you have to look at what she's going through and her life. The prisons are correction centers. And so they go in, they're supposed to have resources to be able to get back out into the world. And they're supposed to get redemption, do a payback for the crimes that they committed. They're not supposed to go in there and die. They're not supposed to go in there and get terminal illnesses. So we need resources to show people what's going on in the prisons. What are the suicide rates? What are the yearly costs? What's the education of the medical staff? How many security personnel do they have? This stuff is what prison advocates do. We don't look for what they do good. I mean, they highlight it themselves. We look for the mistakes they make. And I was in a Zoom meeting one time with other advocates, and we were talking about how the system was messed up and we needed to fix it. And one of the members spoke up and said, the system's not bad. We have good laws, good policies, and we have good government officials. The problem, there's people in there that don't follow the policies, that don't make resources available, who don't care. And those are the ones we need to weed out. WCCW has potential. It was a good facility years ago. Now it's got bad management. Look what happened. And if they need money, they need to come out and tell folks, we don't have good medical facility. We're losing millions in lawsuits. That's what we do. So hopefully you'll be able to meet with your family and your friends, your neighbors, and you can come up with a way to spread the word, get information out. You can go to my website, AmericanQuittingSociety.org, and listen to one of the interviews under Oxyword. And maybe reach out to some of these folks and ask, what can we do? How can I help? You'd be surprised at what you can do to prevent crime, prevent recidivism, and to protect people who are locked up and their family. Because now Paula, she has 2 sons and a grandson. Their father is gone. And Paula is leaving. So all they're going to have is what we have to say here. And that's not right. Especially when mom could have lived another 30, 40 years. Well, thanks for tuning in. And please open up a line of communication. Well, have yourself a wonderful day and go out and make super memories for tomorrow. Thank you.